The Lost Journal of a Steampunk Explorer. If you're reading this, you've already made a mistake.
Stop now.
Close this journal. Burn it. Because if you don't, they'll come for you too. Just like they came for me. Okay, now that I've got your attention, this isn't some cliché horror story. No curses, no ghosts, no creepy old man selling me a mysterious artifact. No, this is much worse. And way more real. My name is Annabelle Eastwick, and until 2 months ago, I was living the kind of life that Instagram influencers would kill for. Gorgeous gowns, exclusive parties, high society nonsense, the whole Victorian's clean girl aesthetic, but make it steampunk. I had a ship called the Iron Zephyr, which I captained because obviously I'm not about to let some guy take credit for my work. I had my squad, Marion, my engineer, and the only person who could fix the ship when I broke it, Calder, our inventor with a suspiciously tragic backstory, and Raven, our navigator, who might have been a spy but was too hot for me to care. We were explorers. Sky pirates, if you wanted to get technical about it. I wasn't doing it to find myself or whatever, it was survival. London streets were no place for a girl with ideas. Society wanted me to sip tea and talk about marriage prospects, but I had a steam engine and a death wish, and that combo got me places. And then Lady Blythe happened. Lady Blythe was this impossibly glamorous widow who ran the most exclusive parties in town. She sent me an invite to one of her masquerade balls with a note. "We need to talk. It's about your father." Which was weird, because my dad had been dead for years, and the last time I'd brought him up at a party, the conversation ended faster than a clockwork pigeon crashing into Big Ben. The night of the ball, I showed up in a gown stitched with tiny gears that shimmered like gold when I moved. My mask, a sleek brass contraption with filigree, and just a touch of menace. I looked like trouble, and I was. Blythe found me almost immediately. "You look just like him," she said, smiling in that way people do when they're about to ruin your life. "I'll take that as a compliment," I replied, swirling my champagne. "Fake it till you make it, right?"
She didn't waste time.
"There's something of his.
Something you need to see.
Follow me." She led me through a maze of corridors, deeper into the manor than any guest was supposed to go. The air got colder, quieter, and then we were in this underground chamber, lit by dim gas lamps. In the center of the room was, I don't even know how to describe it. Imagine if a Tesla coil and a beating heart had a baby, and that baby was a metal sphere suspended in midair, glowing with this eerie blue light. It was alive. I could feel it, like it was watching me. "That's the core," Blythe said. "Your father built it." "No, he didn't." I laughed, but it sounded fake, even to me. "Yes, he did. And now, it's your responsibility." Apparently, my dad wasn't just an inventor. He was a member of this secret society called the Order of Ether. They were trying to use the core to create unlimited energy or some other world-changing nonsense, but it went horribly wrong. The core wasn't just a machine. It was sentient. And it was angry. And now it wanted me. That's when everything went sideways. The core started humming, this low, bone-rattling sound, and the lights flickered. Blythe grabbed my arm. "You need to leave. They'll be coming for you now." "They? Who's they?" Before she could answer, the room exploded into chaos. I don't know if it was the core or someone trying to stop us, but suddenly there was smoke and screaming, and I'm not proud of this. I bolted. I made it back to the Iron Zephyr with just enough time to yell, "We're leaving," before the sky was full of airships chasing us. From there, things just got worse. Marion found a tracker embedded in our ship's engine. Calder started acting sketchy, like he knew more about my dad's secret life than he was letting on. Raven disappeared for 2 days, then came back with a warning. "The Order has eyes everywhere. You can't trust anyone." Which, okay, dramatic much. But he wasn't wrong. The Order wanted me alive, not because I was special, but because they thought my bloodline could stabilize the core. Which sounded a lot like sacrifice her to the glowing murder orb. And then there were the dreams. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, hearing the core's voice in my head. It would show me visions of power, cities running on its energy, people bowing to me like I was their queen.
But there was always a price.
Always this whisper. "Give in. Let me in." I didn't tell the crew about the dreams. Not even Marion, and she was basically my best friend. I couldn't risk them thinking I was losing it. The final straw came when we were ambushed over the channel. Lady Blythe had betrayed me. She led the order right to us. The Zephyr took heavy damage, and I had to make a choice: hand myself over, or risk everyone I cared about. So I did the only thing I could. I jumped. I don't remember hitting the water. Just waking up on a stranger's airship, miles from the wreckage, with no sign of my crew. The woman who saved me called herself Delphi and claimed to be a rogue member of the Order. She gave me this journal and told me to write everything down. "You're the only one who can finish this," she said. "But first, you need to disappear." So that's what I'm doing. Disappearing. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Or worse. But don't feel bad for me. I chose this. All I ask is that you keep the journal safe. Because the core is still out there. And it's not done yet. I know you're still reading. You should have burned this already. But since you didn't, well, I guess we're in this together now, aren't we? Let me explain something. When Delphi said I had to disappear, she didn't mean lying low in some cozy countryside in with tea and biscuits. She meant erasing myself. No more Annabelle Eastwick, no more Iron Zephyr, no more daring sky pirate who took no nonsense from anyone. I had to become no one. Delphi's ship, the Obsidian Moth, was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Black as midnight, silent as a secret. It didn't just fly, it slipped. Between air currents, between shadows, between worlds, if I'm being honest. The Order would never find us, she assured me, but the way she said it didn't exactly inspire confidence. I spent days, or maybe weeks, holed up in a cramped cabin, writing everything down in this journal. Not just for you, but for me. To make sense of it all. Who was my father, really? Why didn't he tell me about the Order? About the core? And most importantly, why did it have to be me? Delphi wasn't much for small talk. She'd appear unannounced, dropping cryptic clues like breadcrumbs. "Your father wanted to destroy the core," she said one night, her face half-lit by the ship's eerie green glow. "But he didn't have the stomach for it. Destroy it? Isn't it supposed to be the key to infinite energy or whatever? That's what they want you to believe. But the core doesn't give, it takes. It feeds on chaos, on conflict. The more you use it, the more it needs." I didn't have an answer to that. I wasn't even sure I believed her. But something about the way the core had spoken to me in my dreams, like it knew me, like it wanted me, made my skin crawl. The turning point came when we docked in an abandoned sky station above the ruins of Paris. Delphi claimed we needed supplies, but I suspected she had other motives. The place was a graveyard, all rusted iron and shattered glass. Airships, long forgotten, floated like corpses in the mist. We weren't alone. A group of scavengers ambushed us in the lower decks. They weren't the usual ragtag bunch of thieves. I could tell by the way they moved, coordinated and precise. Order agents. Delphi fought like she'd been born for it, wielding a weapon I couldn't even begin to describe. Part blade, part energy conduit. All terrifying. I held my own, but barely. When the dust settled, we found one of the agents still alive, pinned beneath a fallen beam. "Who sent you?" Delphi demanded, her voice colder than the wind howling through the station. The man laughed, blood bubbling at his lips. "You think you're the only one who wants the core? It's bigger than you. Bigger than the Order. The world will burn before they let you destroy it." Delphi silenced him with a single, sharp motion. No hesitation. No regret. That night, as I stared at the stars through a shattered window, I couldn't shake his words. The Order wasn't the only threat. Whatever this was, it went deeper than I'd ever imagined. The next morning, Delphi handed me a map. "There's a man in Istanbul," she said. "He was your father's partner, back before the Order turned on him. If anyone knows how to stop the core, it's him." "Partner?" "My dad never mentioned a partner." "Did he mention any of this?" She shot back, and I couldn't argue with that. The journey to Istanbul was tense. Delphi was growing more paranoid by the day, checking and rechecking the ship systems, snapping at me for the smallest mistakes. I knew she was scared, even if she'd never admit it. And honestly,
So was I.
When we finally arrived, the city was a labyrinth of steam and shadows, more alive than any place I'd ever been. Delphi led me to a crumbling workshop tucked away in the back streets. Inside was a man who looked like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. "Annabelle," Delphi said, gesturing to me. "Meet Elias." Elias was intense. The kind of guy who could make a 5-minute conversation feel like a chess game where you're losing badly. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. "The core can't be destroyed," he said, barely looking up from the strange device he was tinkering with. "But it can be redirected." "Redirected?" I repeated. "To where?" Elias finally looked at me, his eyes sharper than broken glass.
To you?
It took me a moment to process what he was saying.
No.
Absolutely not. I'm not sacrificing myself to that thing.
It's not about sacrifice, he said.
It's about control.
The core is tied to your bloodline.
That's why it's been calling to you. If you can bond with it, you can contain it. Use it against the Order. Against anyone who tries to exploit it. And if I can't... Elias didn't answer. He didn't need to. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Delphi and Elias argued endlessly, but I couldn't focus on their words. All I could think about was the core, waiting for me like a predator in the dark. That night, I made my decision. I don't know how this will end. Maybe I'll succeed. Maybe I'll fail. Maybe I'll find this journal floating in the wreckage of the obsidian moth and wonder who I was. All I know is this. I'm not running anymore. If the core wants me, it can have me. But it won't break me. It's time to finish what my father started. And if I don't come back, well, at least I'll go out with a bang. I woke up to the soft hum of the obsidian moth, my decision carved into my chest like a wound that hadn't yet scarred over. Delphi wasn't happy when I told her. "You don't have to do this, Annabelle," she said, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "You could just run. Disappear."
Live.
"Run where's?" I snapped. "The Order won't stop. And even if I could escape them, I can't escape it. It's inside me now, in my dreams, in my thoughts." She didn't argue. She didn't have to. She just stared at me, her sharp eyes softening, and for the first time, I saw Delphi not as the unbreakable leader, but as someone who had lost too much already. Elias worked through the night preparing the device, a fusion of brass, copper, and glowing shards of something that looked almost alive. "This will link you to the core," he explained, his hands moving deftly. "But be warned, once the connection is made, there's no going back. The core will try to consume you. It will dig into your fears, your doubts, your weaknesses." "Great," I said, trying to mask my terror with sarcasm. "Sounds like a lovely time." Delphi's hand brushed mine as I stepped into the center of the workshop. "For what it's worth," she said softly, "you're braver than anyone I've ever known." "Or stupider," I replied, managing a weak smile. Elias activated the device, and the world fell away. I wasn't in the workshop anymore. I wasn't anywhere. I was inside the core, or maybe it was inside me. It felt like being submerged in molten gold and freezing water at the same time. Voices whispered in my ears, some familiar, some not. "You can't do this," they hissed. "You're just a girl."
Weak.
Small. Insignificant. But then, beneath the noise, I heard another voice.
Steady.
Strong.
Mine.
"You've faced worse." I focused on that voice, holding on to it like a lifeline. The whispers grew louder, angrier, but I didn't let them in. Slowly, the molten gold cooled. The freezing water warmed. I felt the core shift, not as an enemy but as something alive. Curious. Waiting. "You don't control me," I said aloud, my voice echoing in the void. "I control you." And just like that, the connection was made. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the workshop. Elias was staring at me like I'd just walked through fire. Delphi's face was unreadable, but her eyes shimmered with something like pride.
"Well,"
Elias asked, his voice tight. "Did it work?" In response, I raised my hand. A small orb of light, no, not light, energy, formed in my palm, pulsing like a heartbeat. I could feel its power, vast and endless, but it didn't scare me. Not anymore. It worked, I said, my voice steady. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The order came for us, of course, they always do. But this time, I wasn't running. With the core's power coursing through me, I was unstoppable. We dismantled their network piece by piece, freeing their prisoners, destroying their machines. Elias and Delphi fought beside me every step of the way, and for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. Like I wasn't just Annabelle Eastwick, the girl who had stumbled into something far bigger than herself. I was Annabelle Eastwick, the breaker of chains. But the core was always there, lurking in the back of my mind. It wasn't evil, not exactly, but it was hungry. It wanted more energy, more chaos, more of me. I knew I couldn't keep it forever. So I made one last choice. In the ruins of what used to be the Order's headquarters, I found the core's original containment vessel, a massive, ancient machine built to house its power. Elias and Delphi begged me not to do it, but I didn't listen. This is the only way, I told them. If I keep the core, it'll destroy me. And if I lose control, it'll destroy the world. The process of transferring the core back into its vessel was excruciating, like tearing out a piece of my soul. But when it was done, I felt lighter, freer. Delphi and Elias helped me seal the vessel in a place no one would ever find it. And then we walked away, leaving the core and the chaos it brought behind. Now, as I write this final entry, I don't know what the future holds. The world is still broken, still flawed. But it's free. And as for me, I'm not the girl I was when I started this journey. I'm something else now. Something stronger. If you've found this journal, then maybe my story isn't over after all. Maybe it's just beginning. But whatever happens next, remember this. Even the smallest person can hold the greatest power. And sometimes, the only way to win is to let it go.